In 2006, a 16-year-old girl from Pennsylvania walked into a Nashville office and convinced a small record label to take a chance on her. She had no famous connections, no industry insider backing her, no guarantee that anything would work. 2 decades later, Forbes placed her net worth at $2 billion, making her the richest female musician in the history of recorded music. But here is what makes that number remarkable. She did not build it through a perfume line. She did not launch a fashion brand. She did not invest in real estate or cryptocurrency or tech startups. She built a $2 billion empire almost entirely through music. Through songs she wrote herself, through stages she performed on herself, through a war she fought herself. This is the story behind Taylor Swift. Taylor Allison Swift was born on December 13, 1989, in West Reading, Pennsylvania. Her father, Scott Swift, was a financial advisor. Her mother, Andrea, had worked in marketing. They were a comfortable family. But comfort does not explain what Taylor Swift became. What set her apart was something she discovered early. In music, the person who writes the song owns the future. Not the label, not the manager, not the distributor, the writer. At 14 years old, Taylor convinced her parents to uproot their entire lives and move to Nashville, Tennessee, the home of country music. She started attending open mics. She wrote songs constantly. She pitched herself to every record label she could find. Most of them said no, one said yes. A small independent label called Big Machine Records. Taylor Swift signed her first recording contract at 15 years old. And that single decision, that signature on that page, would become the most defining and most painful chapter of her entire career. Her debut album came out in 2006. It sold over 5 million copies worldwide. For a teenage country artist, this was already extraordinary. But Taylor Swift was not interested in extraordinary. She was building towards something much larger. Fearless came next. It won the Grammy for Album of the Year. Taylor Swift became the youngest artist ever to win that award. Then came Speak Now, then Red, then 1989, which sold over 10 million copies worldwide and made her one of the best-selling artists on the planet. Her tours followed the same trajectory. The Speak Now World Tour grossed $123 million. The Red Tour brought in $150 million. The 1989 World Tour generated $250 million, the highest-grossing tour of any artist that year. She was not just popular. She was a commercial machine. And then, in 2019, everything changed. In June of that year, talent manager Scooter Braun acquired Big Machine Records in a deal worth approximately $300 million. The acquisition seemed like standard music industry business. But buried inside that transaction was something that would ignite one of the most public disputes in entertainment history. Braun now owned the master recordings of Taylor Swift's first 6 albums, every song from her debut through Reputation, the recordings she had made between the ages of 15 and 28, the music that had made her famous, the music that generated royalties every single time it was streamed, licensed, or played. Taylor Swift did not own any of it. She said she found out about the acquisition from a Tumblr post. She went public immediately. In a detailed statement, she described years of attempting to purchase her masters from the original label owner, Scott Borchetta. She said she had been told she could earn them back, one album at a time, by signing a new multi-album deal. She called Scooter Braun's acquisition her worst-case scenario. She said she had been stripped of her life's work. The music industry had rarely seen anything like it. An artist of her stature, at the peak of her power, publicly declaring war on the people who owned her catalog. Most artists in her position would have stayed quiet. They would have negotiated behind closed doors. They would have accepted the situation and moved on. Taylor Swift did none of that. Instead, she announced that she would re-record every single one of her first 6 albums. Track by track, note by note. She would create new versions, release them under the name Taylor's Version, and encourage every fan every platform and every film and television producer to use her new recordings instead of the originals. It was an audacious plan. Nobody had ever attempted something like this at her scale. The music industry assumed it would fail, that fans would not care enough to switch, that streaming platforms would not cooperate, that the original masters would retain their dominance. They were wrong. Fearless Taylor's version was released in April 2021. It debuted at number 1, Red Taylor's version followed, then Speak Now, then 1989. Each release was a cultural event. Fans coordinated to stream only the new versions. Platforms updated their libraries. Movie studios licensing her music began requesting Taylor's version. The original masters, the ones Scooter Braun had paid hundreds of millions of dollars for, began losing their cultural relevance. Their financial value began to erode. And in May 2025, Taylor Swift completed the final move. She purchased her original master recordings from Shamrock Capital, the investment firm that had acquired them from Braun, for an estimated $360 million. She now owns everything, every song she has ever written, every recording she has ever made, the complete archive of her musical career under her total control. But the re-recording project was only one chapter of the empire she was building. In March 2023, Taylor Swift launched the Eras Tour, a concert series celebrating every chapter of her career, from her country debut through her most recent work. The scale of the tour was unlike anything the live music industry had seen. Stadiums sold out within minutes of tickets going on sale. Secondary market prices reached thousands of dollars per ticket. Cities competed to host her shows. Economists began tracking what they called the Taylor Swift effect, the measurable boost to local economies generated by her arrival in a city. By the time the tour concluded, it had grossed over $2.2 billion in ticket sales, the highest-grossing concert tour in the history of live music. Merchandise sales added an estimated $400 million. The concert film, released in cinemas worldwide, generated another $262 million. In total, the Eras Tour is estimated to have contributed over $4 billion to the economies of the cities it visited. Forbes confirmed her billionaire status in 2024. They noted that she was the first musician in history to achieve billionaire status primarily through music and live performance, without relying on external business ventures. By March 2026, Forbes updated that figure to $2 billion. Her music catalog alone is estimated to be worth approximately $900 million. Combined with touring income, royalties, streaming revenue, merchandise, and licensing, Taylor Swift has built one of the most valuable entertainment empires in modern history. But the number, as extraordinary as it is, may not be the most important part of the story. Because what Taylor Swift did changed the music industry permanently. Before her public battle over masters, the concept of artist ownership was largely invisible to the general public. Fans did not think about who owned recordings. They just listened to music. After Taylor Swift, everything changed. A generation of emerging artists began demanding ownership clauses in their contracts before signing. Major labels began offering better terms. The conversation around creative rights entered mainstream culture in a way it never had before. She did not just build a $2 billion empire. She rebuilt the architecture of the music industry itself, from a 15-year-old girl signing her first contract in a Nashville office, to the richest female musician in the history of recorded sound. That is the story behind Taylor Swift. If you want to know the real story behind the people who shape our world, you are in the right place. Subscribe. The next story is already coming.